Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Time for our weekly Q&A session with myself, Andrew Musgrove, and our Newcastle United editor, Aaron Stokes. We're live on the Chronicle NUFC Facebook page, YouTube and Twitter, and later on our podcast channel. And plenty to talk about, as usual, in the world of Newcastle United. A bit of transfer news, of course, 2 friendlies up at St James's Park as well. Newcastle coming out as winners in both of them against good European opposition. And myself and Aaron will talk about what we think we've learned from those 2 games, looking ahead to that game against Nottingham Forest on Saturday. But first off, Aaron, I do think there's only one place to start, and that's not with Newcastle United, but it is with the fact that the women's England team have been crowned European champions after a terrific win over Germany last night. I think it's like 17 million people watched it live on BBC One, which is unbelievable. And it was just inspiring. It was motivating. And you know, I think everybody got carried away. I'm sure you guys watching and listening came along on the journey just like me and Aaron did. And what was really nice about it, at the end, Gabby Logan signed off from her coverage on the BBC, and she said, "You think it's all over? Well, this is just the beginning." And fingers crossed, it is. The message there was kind of, it's down to the fans and the media to make sure that when this train arrives at the next station, it's still full, because in many ways, I suppose the worry is that the hype and the party atmosphere and the scenes we've seen over the last 24 hours, that will die off in the next few months. But fingers crossed it doesn't, and it inspires the next generation of not just football fans, but young girls wanting to be footballers.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a sort of a monumental day for them yesterday. Obviously, it's game changing in terms of what it'll do for football in this country. In terms of the female game, the last couple of weeks have been fantastic. I think we've had some fantastic games. The Norway win was a highlight. The sort of ecstasy of Georgia Stanway's goal, and then obviously how brilliant yesterday was. So, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the full tournament, to be honest. And I'm just glad that didn't go to penalties yesterday, to be honest.
It would have been a bit.
I was dreading that.
Yeah, and that the goal from 2 in the first goal that England scored, I've watched that several times again this morning. It's such a beautiful goal. The pass and then the finish to get it up and over the keeper. I mean, Harry Kane tweeted about what a good finish it was. And it was unbelievable. And, I've been watching that on repeat because it was just there are no words to really describe that goal. But from a Northeast connection as well, I think we should be very proud of Lucy Bronze, Jill Scott, Georgia Stanway is a Newcastle United fan, and those who have gone before as well. Steph Houghton, of course, wasn't in the squad. She's had a tough time with injuries, but she's part of that generation who really laid the foundation for what's happened, but also for what's to come, and flying that Northeast flag. I know a lot of them girls that were mentioned there from down the road at Sunderland, but we should just be proud as a region that we've had women who've really helped lay down the foundations, hopefully, for a very successful future in the women's game.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, look, I don't want to take too much credit for this, but Beth Mead was the first footballer I ever interviewed. So I don't want to say I had an impact on her career at a young age at Sunderland, but yeah, no, brilliant. As you say, so many from the Northeast, obviously Lucy Bronze from Manic, and as we've touched on, Beth Mead and Jill Scott. Just fantastic. Yeah, really, really good for the region, for the country. And yeah, hopefully this is really the starting block for it. I mean, look, we've already seen it. The WSL gets crazy figures on TV and in attendances now. We obviously saw what happened at St James's Park with the 4th tier women's side, which we know Amanda Staveley's going to try and put so much effort into over the next couple of years. A really exciting time for the game and for the females.
I mean, you mentioned there the Newcastle United game, and I was at St James's Park, as many others were, watching them take on Alnwick Ladies, and it was a great day. And I left that game thinking I made a commitment to myself that I was going to get down to more women's games. And yesterday, watching them win the European Championships has just kind of reaffirmed my desire to get down to watch Newcastle women's. And it's such an exciting time to follow, that side of Newcastle United, because Amanda Staveley has made a commitment. She wants to invest into the women's side and wants to see them go up the tiers and become a force in women's football. And I know times are tough, so I'm not going to sit here and preach and say get down to the women's game. But even just sharing some of the content the club put out, just showing your support that way will make the difference, because that's what it's all about. It's getting it out there and really supporting the women's side, the Newcastle women's side, in any way you can, whether that is going on the terraces or whether, like I say, just sharing the content the club put out. It all matters.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, the club will put on more games at St James's Park, which I'm sure will attract even more, mental attendances than they did earlier this year. But yeah, look, it's fantastic for the club. It's fantastic for the region. It's good to see that, something that was so abandoned by Mike Ashley has just been picked up by these new owners, and they're really making a go of it.
Yeah, 100%. So congratulations to the England women's side being crowned European champions. A superb tournament, a superb performance in the final. And yeah, hopefully, as we've just said there, it inspires the next generation. We're going to now look back on Newcastle's 2 friendlies up at St James's Park. Interestingly, that they obviously played within 24 hours of each other, one against Atlanta and then one against Bilbao. I still don't quite understand why. I mean, was there any reason given to why they were in, the day after one another?
I think it makes sense, and I think I was certainly coming away from the Saturday game thinking, why on earth have they not done this more often? They've had 87,000 fans in across 2 days. They've made a lot of money, the club. And also, I think it gives all the players, a good run out, rather than just giving, 11 players 45 minutes and another 11 players 45 minutes. I think it gives them, Eddie Howe and the players, sort of a 2 good run outs at once. I think what we saw from the 2 friendlies was, and I think, and John Steele's just asked in the comments about the back 4. I think what we probably saw on Friday was the back 5 that he's going to play against Forest. I think Pope, and then obviously Trippier, Target, and I think Sean Byrne. Don't think he'll start Botman on Saturday.
You don't think he's going to start?
He's going to start him.
No, that is a claim.
I think that was the 5 that he's going to play on against Forest. And we asked him about Botman on the Saturday, how, when he said that. I actually asked how on the Friday if he was tempted to play Botman because he played a very strong defence. And, he just gave me the usual answer of, look, we've got a strong squad. I don't see it as a first 11 and a subs. I see everyone can play. When asked, and then he was asked on the Saturday again about as to whether Botman was ready to start in the Premier League. And he said yes, but he also said again that there's competition for places. And I think he's going to do what he did with Bruno and slowly ease him in. I think on Saturday, I think it'll be the 5.
I'm going to disagree. I think Botman will start against Forest, and we will have our usual preview looking ahead to that Nottingham Forest game on Thursday with John Gibson. But I do feel Botman has shown why Newcastle have wanted him for so long. He's looking like a very good buy, and especially for the cost as well. But there was just his performance against Bilbao, a good European side. He just looked assured. And I get the case about settling him in, but this isn't this isn't January. This is a start to a new season. He's had pre-season with Newcastle United. Eddie Howe's seen enough. They've scouted him for goodness knows how long. They know exactly where he's going to fit in, and I do think it would be a massive surprise if he wasn't in that starting 11 against Forest.
Botman was fantastic on Saturday, really good, looked slick, his passes were fantastic, he looks comfortable, he looks settled already. But honestly, Shaw and Byrne were fantastic together on Friday night, really, really solid. And I think we know what Howe's like. We know, with these new signings, he likes to just ease them in. And honestly, I won't be surprised if Botman starts. I hope Botman does start because I think, as Howe said, I think he's ready. But it would be a massive claim, a massive sort of decision to leave him out. But I think I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say I think that's the back 5 on.
Well, there we have it. I mean, I think you can pretty much write out the rest of that, the defence of Trippier on one side, Target on the other. I thought Martin Dubravka did his chances no harm. I mean, there was a few really good saves he made against Bilbao. A quick double save where he tipped it up in the air, didn't he? And he had to quickly react to push it from going over the line. I thought he performed really well. And I thought a lot of players actually that were playing on the Saturday did enough to maybe force their way into the thinking of Eddie Howe. But again, I do think the starting 11 on Saturday is it's pretty much nailed on unless they go out and manage to sign, say, James Maddison in the next few days, because I do think, you're going to have, like I say, Trippier, Target. I think it'll be Botman and Burn. I then think it'll be Bruno, Joe Linton. Now, the injury with Shelby's an interesting one. He's set to miss that game. So then that's probably the one position you're looking at and thinking who fits in there. But then you've got Maxman, Fraser, or / Miggy.
Yeah, I think, and I wrote about this on Friday, I think there's 3 positions that aren't nailed on. I think centre back, I think I could easily see Botman not starting. I think down the right, I think Miggy starts, but I think you could, if Fraser starts, it's not too much of a surprise. And look, I'm not going to tell Eddie Howe how to do his job, because he's certainly a better manager than me, but I would love to see Anderson start over Willock on Saturday. Anderson, again, was the best player on the pitch on Friday. He was he just looked so at ease against, Champions League side. Yes, admittedly, it's a pre-season friendly, but he looked really good.
What I loved, when I wasn't at the game, I was watching it on the stream, but what I loved is you could see him dropping deep. He was, when the defender had the ball, he was gesturing and moving his hands, and he was saying, "I want the ball at my feet." And when he didn't get it, he threw his arms in the air. He just wants the ball at his feet. And that shows an arrogance in many ways. It shows a confidence, for a young lad who knows exactly what he's fighting for. So you've got that added pressure as well. He's fighting for his place in the starting 11 at the start of this, what is going to be hopefully a tremendous journey for Newcastle United up to the upper regions of the Premier League into European football. He's got family history here at the club. He's a Geordie. He's a fan. So you've got all these elements on top of that. And it's not just fighting for a place in the starting 11, but he just looks assured. And for him to be in that battle, knowing the names that are around him, knowing what's at stake with that crowd as well, and just telling experienced players, give me the ball, and then show him frustration when he's not getting it. He does look a talent. And it's a big, big decision though, isn't it? Because if he keeps him, and he doesn't get regular game time, we've mentioned this previously, is that going to be detrimental to Elliot Anderson? Because surely you've got to be, for him to keep on developing, he needs game time week in, week out, doesn't he?
Yeah, 100%. He either needs minutes in this first team, and if they can't guarantee him regular minutes, then just send him out and run for another season. I'm not against send him out, but I would just love to see him get a proper chance. And I just think, yourself how good Saturday is going to be. The atmosphere is going to be electric. And I just think, throw him in from the outset, first game of the season, you've got nothing to lose. If he plays like he did against Atlanta on Friday, there's absolutely no issue with him starting against Forest for me. He took the headlines again, as he has done all pre-season. Now, look, I think if you put a gun to my head and said who's going to start, I think he would start Willock, but I would like to see Anderson in there.
I thought Willock did all right against Bilbao. He's looking like he's got a bit more energy about him. He's a bit more driven, it looks like. And I do think we've seen an improvement, as we have really across the board with Newcastle United under Eddie Howe, when it comes to players who weren't performing under the last manager. I was at the game against Bilbao. I thought Wilson looked sharp, the really good finish, fast feet, clinical. I thought Alan St. Maxim, we saw what he can do. I mean, the finish, it was really, really good. Great ball from Joe Linton. And St. Maxim carves at the pitch and puts it around the keeper. But we also still saw the little bits of his game where he's holding on the ball too long and tries to take on an extra man. But people in the comments, people listening to this will probably just say, you just got to take the rough with the smooth, I guess. And just he's going to lose it. He's going to lose the ball every 3 or 4 passes, but he's going to do something magical like we saw with that finish. I thought Bruno and Joe Linton, there's an arrogance about them in the middle of the park. I mean, Joe Linton looks like a man who knows just how good he is, like the little touches, and them two together look like they've got stuck with a real partnership. And I came away thinking, yeah, they do look a little bit arrogant, but in a good way for Newcastle United. Guimaraes again just showing his class. I thought Botman, as I've mentioned, some really nice touches. But the one person I do want to just have a bit of a word about, and you can pick up on anything I've just said there in a moment, Aaron, but is Matt Ritchie. Because we did have a little bit of a feisty discussion not too long ago where I kind of wrote him off. And you said he's a good player to have around the squad. And I'm gonna backtrack, and I'm gonna say, actually, Saturday I can see, after watching Matt Ritchie against Bilbao, I can see where you're coming from, because I thought I was in the Leazers end on the lower tier, and you could just hear Matt Ritchie shouting time and time again. And he's telling the defense to get out. He was organizing players on dead ball situations. He was trying to kind of shoulder Matty Bondswell into the right position, just kind of trying to nurture him when he came on. And I thought, I did actually think Aaron was right here, because that's the kind of experience and leadership you need around the dressing room when times are tough. You need someone who's just going to shout up and make their voice heard. Someone Eddie Howe trusts. Clearly, they've got that relationship. I did think, from a playing point of view, though, he didn't stick to his position. He was often running into the centre. He was running around after the ball, a bit like a headless chicken. But then the flip side of that was you could hear him talking and chatting and shouting away. And I think that is going to be really key. Even if he is on the touchline, or even if he's not in the match day squad, I think during the week, in the stands, coming down maybe into the dressing room at half time, just having a little bit of a word. And I thought Saturday, okay, I can see why maybe Eddie Howe and Aaron Stokes wants to keep Ritchie around the Newcastle United dressing room.
Look, I mean, I hate to say I told you so, but this is exactly what I was meaning the other week. Yes, maybe the legs have gone a bit. Yes, maybe he isn't the type of player that he was 4 or 5 years ago, but he offers a lot in that dressing room. Eddie Howe really, really respects him. He's a leader. And I did notice that it was about 25 minutes into the game on Saturday, and there was just a sort of momentary lull in the game. Nothing was really happening. The crowd wasn't really saying anything. And there was just a moment of quiet at St James's Park, and then all you could hear out of nowhere was just Ritchie barking orders across the pitch. And I was just sat there thinking, it's exactly what he offers. He's really, really good, as you've said, with the youngsters. He takes care of the sort of younger players that come into the team. Look, I don't think there's going to be an abundance of offers from this summer. I equally don't think he'll get much game time, but I think he's a good member of the dressing room to have around, and I wouldn't not be against it all. Keeping him and giving him, I thought performance-wise he did all right as well. I think in a cup game, or some cup games, or lesser important games this season, I think he can still do a job. So I was happy to be vindicated with that. Ritchie, on the other players that you touched on, Bruno is. I mean, I'm sick of praising him every week. It doesn't matter if it's a pre-season friendly, it's Arsenal at home. He's just so good.
I do think this is going to sound a bit strange saying this, what was good, I'm searching for a better phrase there, but we'll stick with good, was during the game against Bilbao, he did give the ball away a couple of times, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Obviously, if it costs Newcastle United a goal in a competitive game, then yes, it's a bad thing. But what I mean in terms of it being a good thing is that it kind of just reminds you that he's going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
He's not this superhuman football player. He is world class. We're running out of things to say that we haven't already said about how good he is. But I just thought, when he gave the ball away a couple of times, I just thought that's good, because it brings down that kind of expectation that he's going to have a bad game at one point, and that might run for 3 or 4 games. Mm-hmm. But we know class is permanent, form is temporary. But I noted that. I just thought, it's not necessarily the worst thing that he's making a couple of mistakes here or there.
Yeah, there was a couple of wayward passes in the first half, which I did notice as well. But I just think the Newcastle, when they counter-attack and he gets the ball, he's so quick at just turning the game on its head. He's getting Maxi away straight away. He's darting past players. He was really, really good on Saturday at the thing you love him for, and that was winning those fouls in the middle. When he looks like he's running out of options, then he can just nick a foul. Really, really excited to see him this season if he can just keep progressing. Joelinton, again, I thought was good. I really like the pair of them together. And I think, obviously, with Shelby being out, I think it probably will be them two and Willock. I know I've just seen somebody in the comments there. Sorry, I don't know who said it, but someone said that thought Sean Longstaff will start. Maybe I think Longstaff's had a good pre-season.
I think it will be Longstaff. Personally, if Shelby's out, which we think he's going to be.
You think it'll be Joelinton and
Bruno and Longstaff?
Okay, I think it'll be Joelinton and Bruno Willock. But I mean, look, I don't think it really matters. I think Longstaff's looked really good. Willock looked good on Saturday. He maybe needs to be a little bit sharper, but look, I mean, it's still pre-season, isn't it? It's going to take a couple of weeks to get up to speed, but Longstaff looks notably fitter, I think, and I think he's had a really good pre-season.
If you're John Joe Shelby and you're sitting in the stands, I don't know if he was there, you're sitting at home watching this, are you looking upon these final 2 games of the pre-season and going, yeah, wrong time to get injured, isn't
Definitely, 100%. And especially for Shelby, because he's been so good this pre-season, and every time he was picking up the ball in the Austria games, he was really, really dangerous. And I think especially for him, he's had so many pre-seasons under managers that we won't name, where he's just gone through the motions and his fitness hasn't been right. We know that obviously he's spent a big chunk of this summer in Turkey with a personal trainer. He's really been putting the hard yards in on the training pitch to get up to speed. He's probably looking the fittest he's looked while in the Newcastle shirt, and then obviously he's going to be probably out for about a month. So it's a tricky one.
We've got L. Stapleton asking there, sure, the difference between Botman and Bruno is that Botman has had a pre-season to acclimatise, and I think that is the difference. I think that is why you'll see Botman starting against Forest.
I was already looking forward to Saturday, but I'm not looking forward to it now because we've got this little wager now of who it's going to be, Botman or no Botman. Look, as I've said earlier, I would love to see Botman from the start. I think it would be great if you could get him in, but I don't know. I've just got a little feeling. If Botman had started on Friday, I would have thought he'd start, but I just think that back five looked really solid against Atlanta, and I think Howe knows that. But look, it's a very, very, very good dilemma to have.
Certainly is. Obviously, everyone knows Newcastle are in need of a centre forward. Did Chris Wood do enough? We know he scored the penalty on Friday, but did he do enough to convince you that actually if they end the transfer window without a third striker, it's not necessarily the worst thing in the world? Or Newcastle, I mean, getting a striker in just has to be the top priority.
Very well taken penalty. Good that he wanted it. He needs the confidence, but I think his game apart from that, it didn't really sort of catch the eye. Friday was a weird one. It was a second string attack. It was a really scrappy, typical preseason game where neither team really got a hold of the game. So maybe you could put it down to that. But if Chris Wood went out on Friday night with the aim of allaying any fears about it being him and Wilson, then he didn't really do a good job, I didn't think. Look, but I think he just does not look like he fits this system. And I think it's a shame because we had such a good January transfer window and every single player's hit the ground running and Trippier's loved and Bruno's loved. And I feel for Chris Wood because he was such a good striker for Burnley and it's just not working out for whatever reason. But yeah, it was just another sort of average game from Friday, I thought.
It's going to be interesting. And we're going to get on to transfers later on in the show, so do stick with us. But just to finish off on that point there about the strikers, and this links into the chase for James Maddison and what have you. Like I said, we will discuss that in a moment. But the fact that a right winger quite clearly seems to be Newcastle's top priority with the players that are being linked to, does that bemuse you slightly? Now, obviously, we don't get to see what goes on the training ground, and the player and the people making the decisions are much more experienced than us in professional football and what have you, and they will know what they want. But just looking at it, for me, you have Ryan Fraser, you have Jacob Murphy, and you have Miguel Almiron, and we were talking last week about the levels. Now, James Maddison clearly is better in my view than Harrison. I haven't seen him for Diaby to make a comparison, but I do think he would be an improvement on the three that I've just mentioned. But if you don't get Maddison in, I don't think it's the end of the world. If you don't get another right winger in, it's not the end of the world. What, for me, would be a blow is if you are starting the season or the window closes with just Wood and Wilson. That, to me, is worse than not getting in the right winger.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Howe probably knows that. I think he really trusts Miggy, he really trusts Fraser. He's worked with Fraser for years. He loves to give Jacob Murphy go as well. I think he knows that if push comes to shove and if we get September 1st and he hasn't signed a right winger, it's not the end of the world. I agree completely. And everybody you speak to says it. Daniel Polly has just hit the nail on the head there. We know that Wilson is so injury prone and could quite easily, we could be in October before the World Cup and he could have suffered an injury. That leaves you with Wood. Dwight Gales obviously was always going to go, so that's obviously another body out the door. So the priority definitely needs to be a striker, 100%. But I think Howe knows that, and they're trying behind the scenes.
Yeah, want to keep updated on. We will talk about transfers later in the show. Just a few points to make. If you listen to this on the podcast, please remember to like and follow the podcast through your podcast provider and leave us a rating and review if you get the chance. It's a pleasure as well to say that for the month of July, we smashed 100,000 downloads for the Everything is Black and White podcast, which is an amazing achievement. We finished somewhere in the region of 108,000, which we're over the moon with, but that's all down to you guys tuning in and listening. So we thank you guys for being part of the journey. Without the listeners and viewers, we wouldn't have a podcast to put out. So thank you guys for sticking with us, and there'll be loads of good stuff to come this season, a few new shows in the works as well. So keep an eye out for that. What we're going to do now is we're launching a new survey called the Big Newcastle United Forum. And what we want is you guys to answer 7 questions to tell us out of 100 how happy you are with certain elements of the club. I will pop the link to this forum/survey in the comments and into the podcast description for you guys to take part in. Me and Aaron are going to discuss 2 questions of the questions that are on offer for you guys to answer. The first one is, how much trust do you place in the manager and coaching staff to achieve success for the club out of 100?
It's high. It's got to be high. You know what it is? Eddie Howe's such a safe pair of hands. I think I'd trust him quite a lot. I'm going to go 85. Is that too high?
No. 85? No, I mean,
I'll go 85.
It's. I mean, out of 100 for me, it's a bit of a difficult one to rank. I think that's a big number, but 85. No, I don't. I think what I've always said is with Newcastle United and the way this takeover has gone and Eddie Howe, that I don't think it's going to be like every other big takeover we've seen. I don't think if he goes through a bad run, he's necessarily then going to get the boot. I think they're going to back him and really until they can't back him anymore, because I think he's done enough to earn that, but also he's clearly very well liked by the hierarchy up there. And yeah, I mean, you've got to trust your manager, haven't you? You have to trust your manager, because otherwise, what's the point? They clearly trust him because they brought him in after, despite the fact he got Bournemouth, relegated, and he'd been out of the game for a long time. They brought him in, despite the names everyone was expecting them to appoint. Didn't get off to the best of starts. I mean, how many weeks did it take till he got his first win against Burnley in the Premier League? It was quite a while, wasn't it? So, and then they backed him in the January market. They've backed his plan. They've backed the players that he wants to bring in, and they've done it again this summer. So clearly they trust him. And he's brought in his own members of staff. He trusts them. They've got a good working relationship. It's worked well so far, if Amanda Staveley, Mirdad Gadusi, the PIF, and Jamie Rubin trust the manager, then that's enough for me. So you know what? I'll go 70. Give him a little bit of room to work on.
I think the reason I've given him such a high score is because he came in at a really precarious time. Yes, look, the takeover had happened, but it was still very much a club in demise under Mike Ashley, which essentially before Howe came in was sleepwalking towards relegation. And I think what he's done to completely flip that around in less than 12 months, just the little changes he's made, behind the scenes, what he's done with the players' fitness, his mantra of, there's no dead games, every single game, a pre-season friendly, a training game, he wants to win. For me, that's why, I know the club are in safe hands, because unlike previous managers, there's a real expectation that every single player got to be on their game every single day, which can only make the club stronger. I think he's done well to sort of mend the relationship with the fans, who clearly respect him. Performances were good, results were good. So yeah, look, 85 for me.
85. If you guys want to pop your thoughts into the comments, we'll read the best out there. The second question we're going to answer is, how happy are you with the club's transfer of business? Now, that leads on to the next part of the podcast, obviously, with the chase of James Maddison, and also Newcastle being linked to Timo Werner from Chelsea and Maxwell Cornet from Burnley. But so far, the players have signed this summer, Nick Pope, Sven Botman, and Matt Targett's back in. Missed anyone out? Don't think I've ever. 3?
Pope, Target, Botman. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
3. Yeah. I
How-
don't think we've missed
no.
one.
That's been a long summer. Out of 100, how happy are you with it so far?
This one's harder. I think I would go 60. I still feel that's too high. Right, I'll tell you what, I'll justify it. 60 because Botman's a very, very shrewd addition, and he was their top target in January. He was their top target all summer. They went out, they've got him, they've beat Milan. He looks like, to use a very, very old cliche, he looks like an absolute Rolls Royce of a player. Nick Pope was really, really good as well. Good addition for a nice bit of money. Matt Target was really, really good. So that is good. The reason it's not high is because we know they really need 1 or 2 more bodies up front. They know they need another striker, and we know that they've been really frustrated so far. So it's 60 at the minute. If they can get a striker in, it goes to 80, and if they get a striker and a winger in, it goes to 99.
99. We've got Jason Scott there saying, I think if we had a big slump, the Public Investment Fund wouldn't hesitate to replace Howe. It's been softly so far, but I imagine the PIF will be ruthless if they need to be. In terms of my rating out of 100 for the business so far, I'm going to go slightly higher. I'm going to go 80, right? Based on the fact that they haven't had a scattergun approach. And it would be so easy for Newcastle United, given the perceived wealth they've got, to go, right, we need to fill these positions and just go after everybody under the sun. But what they've done is they've stuck with Botman. They stuck with Tekia. Now, it didn't come off, but, they didn't move from the top 2 targets. They've gone and signed Matt Target after having, that is in itself was a really clever deal. Get him on a loan, see how he does, impresses. He's handled it well. Bring him back for 15 million. Yeah, I thought that's a really good deal. Nick Pope could turn out to be the bargain of the summer, really. 10 million pounds or so for an England international, Premier League experience. He's clearly a very good goalkeeper. I think that's a bargain. So I think that's really clever. But I go with 80 just because their approach, I think, has been spot on in terms of not panicking, not being held to ransom, and just really going at the selling clubs and saying, well, look, here's our offer. You want to charge us £20 million more, we'll walk away. And, we might come knocking again in 2 months' time, and we'll see if your price comes down. I've just been impressed the fact that they've not gone down the route of paying silly money and going after everybody. And yes, they need another striker. They need a winger. But, there's still time to get that in. They've been trying. They've been active, and they've not been reactive, I think is the right word. Whereas under Ashley, it was always right at the end. Oh, maybe a panic. And I just think the approach earns them a solid 80 for me. And like you say, striker comes in, it'll go up slightly. But there's a few other questions that you guys can answer. Like I say, I'll pop everything into the comments that you need to click on. It'll take you 5 minutes or so, but it'll be well worth getting your views on there. We've got Geordie Toon for life saying transfer window, he's going to go for 70 so far. The defence was terrible last season at the start. Werner and a winger plus one more midfield player is what he would like to see. Jason says Pope with a top defence will be incredible. Yeah, I agree. I think they have huge potential there. I'm really excited to see how Nick Pope does. Great to have a battle as well between 2 quality goalkeepers. It's going to be really interesting to see if Nick Pope starts. Does Martin Dubravka stick around and take him on, or does he push for an exit? Talking on transfers, we will now head into the latest with James Maddison, and we were, Aaron, talking not too long ago, and we were just 10 minutes ago or so, about levels and who is out there that is better than Miggy, that is better than Ryan Fraser, and better than Jacob Murphy, who was a realistic target as well, because obviously you could name several players who are better than those 3, but we were after realistic targets. And last week we struggled, didn't we? We struggled to draw up a realistic list of players who could come in and provide an upgrade and do better. James Maddison is one of those players. He wasn't on my radar when we were talking about it last week, but he would be an instant upgrade. 12 Premier League goals last season, 8 assists. I think he scored 18 overall. England international, with the World Cup on board as well, added motivation for him to have a good start to the season. Newcastle, £40 million bid being rejected, weighing up whether to go in for him again. Reportedly, 60 million might be enough to twist the arm of Leicester. Would that be a good deal for Newcastle United, do you think?
Yeah, it would. I think bringing Maddison in would be good because, as we say, he's a level above. 60 million is steep, but I think Leicester have got themselves into these. Well, sorry, other clubs have got Leicester into this situation because when Harry Maguire goes for 80 million, and are they really going to sell Maddison on the cheap? Probably not. Maddison's a weird one, I think, like from Newcastle's point of view, because he's not. I don't actually think he is a winger, really. He's more of a number 10. And it's this question that we've had the last couple of weeks, do they need Paqueta when he's a 10? Do they need Maddison if he's essentially going to take one of those three midfield slots? And I was reading over the weekend an interview that Maddison did a couple of years ago when he said that, he wasn't really a fan of playing down the left when Rodgers, put him there on the odd occasion. So look, yeah, there's no denying that James Maddison is a fantastic footballer who would raise the game. I would love to see him in Newcastle shirt. It's just crazy to think that a year ago we'd be sat here talking about potentially getting Maddison in rather than Hamza Chowdhury on loan from Leicester. But yeah, weird one. Obviously, we know over the weekend that Newcastle put an offer in for just under 40 million. Leicester have rejected it. Rodgers came out last night and said that, joked that the first offer would only get them 3/4 of his left leg, which I think makes him probably about 200 million altogether if we added up. But yeah, look, I think from what we've heard, they're going to go in with another one, with a second improved offer. I don't think they'll end up paying 60 million for him because I think it's a big amount of money. It's a big outlay for a position that you don't really need to strengthen. But it'll be interesting to see what Leicester do when another bid comes in.
I mean, Brendan Rodgers' comments were quite interesting because he was also asked about Fofana, who's been linked with a move, and he came out and said he's not for sale. On Maddison, he said he's a player we do not want to sell. Now, guys, listen to this. You'll be accusing me of maybe reading too much into it. But, Aaron, is there a noticeable difference in that? Because, surely you would just say he's not for sale as well.
Yeah, I think it was telling that in the same interview, there was two slightly different answers for two players that they clearly want to keep. Fofana has just signed a new deal at Leicester, which is probably going to, sort of fend off Chelsea's interest. I think Leicester are desperate to try and get Maddison tied down to a new deal. But, from the reports that we've been hearing, he's open to the move. So yeah, I think it really depends how, we know Leicester are one of those clubs that probably need to sell. They're I think they're the only team in the Premier League not to sign a player. There's talk of Tielemans, Barnes, Maddison going. I'm surprised that the club, haven't really pushed for Barnes more, given that, he's a wide midfielder. He can play down the lines. But yeah, look, as I said, it's how much can he test Leicester's resolve? How desperate are they to sell? And can Newcastle try and get, quite like a sort of cheeky deal out of them?
Someone joked, and I have a feeling that it might have been you last week in the office. Did you joke about Ayoze Perez? Someone joked to me.
I joked. That was me. I joked about Perez.
Now, let's be serious now, guys in the comments, get involved. Would you take him back?
I mean, when I said that to you last week, I was joking, wasn't I? But now I'm thinking about it seriously. It would depend on the deal, wouldn't it? It would depend how much. I mean, paying 30 million after what we sold him for, I don't think he's done enough at Leicester. But he hasn't really been given the game time. He was really, really good in the last two seasons for us. When he started off slow, but towards the end of his time on Tyneside, he was really, really improved. I don't know. That would be such a weird move if he came back, wouldn't it?
Roger Cook there says 100% no from me. Jason says Perez is. I'm not going to finish that sentence, but yeah. So okay, a couple of people are definitely against that. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because Leicester in that position that they are, needing to sell before they can buy, and I've done this many times, especially before the takeover was before the takeover went through, and after the takeover as well, going, well, actually, Leicester's what Newcastle should be aiming for. But it's also serving as a big warning to the hierarchy that actually, if you spend all this money, then missing out on the Champions League 2 seasons in a row, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. You need to make sure that you're seeing sustained success to make sure that the financial fair play doesn't hit you and what have you, because you can't keep spending this money and just finishing, just outside the top 4 places.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's why, it's been so positive to see Newcastle, spending the money wisely and sort of not bowing down to these huge demands that clubs have been putting on them when they're making, transfer inquiries. And like you said, it saves them from a sticky situation further down the line if things don't go to plan with, their sort of aspirations to break into the top 8. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to see that Leicester are obviously going to maybe have to flog 1 or 2 of these sort of bigger names. Ideal for Newcastle if they can pick up 1 or 2.
Look at these comments. No one wants Perez back. I'm not saying I do. I was just trying to provoke a bit of debate, and it seems like it's a very one-sided debate. Don't think Perez is worth 35 million to start with, and a few other people throwing that suggestion out of the window. A lot of people asking about Timo Werner. Then, a man signed, huge potential, hasn't quite worked at Chelsea, and I do wonder whether that's the Chelsea system, the Chelsea way, so to speak, or whether he's just not all that right for the Premier League. And that's easy for me to say here, someone who's never played in the Premier League or at any decent level of football. And I always feel bad when I say, is he good enough for the Premier League? Clearly, he's a good footballer. But, what's the latest on this interest in Werner? And is he a man you think would do a job at Newcastle?
I'd be really excited to see Timo Werner at Newcastle. Yes, he's had his sort of well-documented struggles at Chelsea, but there's a player in there, definitely. There's a goal scorer in there. I think if you look back to what he did at Leipzig in the Bundesliga, when he was full of confidence, I think he's a confidence player, and he hasn't really had that at Chelsea. The latest on it is, look, we know the player wants to leave because, he's desperate to get regular game time before the World Cup, as a lot of players will. Tuchel was quite baffled last week that Werner came out and said that, and I don't think Tuchel took it too well. We know he's on huge wages at Chelsea. We know he's on probably 270 grand a week. Any loan deal would require, cooperation from Chelsea, paying a large amount of that. I would say probably over 50% or 50%. I think Newcastle really don't want to shatter this wage structure that they've got in place. And finally, and I think probably most importantly, is that we know not a lot of clubs are after him. There's been talk of a Leipzig return. There's talk of Arsenal. There's talk of Madrid. There's talk of Juventus, who I know Werner's agent visited Juventus in February, so they've had this sort of state their claim months ago. But I honestly, I agree with both Daniel and William there, the 2 recent comments. I think it would be a no-brainer if they can get him in. And I think if you can get him confident in playing football, then I think it would be a good signing. Do I think it'll happen? Probably not. I think there's too many variables out there now. I think there's too many other clubs interested that will probably be able to pay a bigger chunk off from European football. He's playing at a high level. But look, it would be a great deal, and it's good to see the club, going after these sort of high value targets.
Corney from Burnley is the other one. Wasn't in the matchday squad when Burnley took on Huddersfield. That was a tremendous game, I thought, as well. Burnley looked really good. Companies seems to have worked his magic during the pre-season, but Corney was not in that squad. He scored 9 goals last season as Burnley were relegated. He's another player, a bit like Anson Maxman, who gets fans off their seats. What's the latest on that one? Do you think he's someone that could end up at Newcastle this summer?
Yeah, we know that Newcastle have been offered Corney quite a while ago now, about 6 weeks ago, when Burnley were trying to sort of flog him. The release clause is 17.5 million. We were all sort of sat in the press room at St James's Park on Friday, and the team news from Burnley filtered through, and we all sort of looked at each other. No Corney in the squad. We did try and get something out of Eddie Howe after the game, and in typical Eddie Howe fashion, he sort of played it down and said that he can't talk about other teams' players. He can't, sort of discuss anything like that. He said he didn't know as to any reason as to why Cornet was missing. He's got a very good poker face, anyhow. You never know, how true these things are. But look, he would fit the bill. He wouldn't smash the wage structure. He wouldn't stretch the transfer budget at 17 million. I think Newcastle trying to get that down. And I think the further we get in the window, Burnley are going to need to sell him this summer because he doesn't want to be there. So they might be able to sort of shave a few millions off that. He plays down the left, which would probably see Maxi move over at the right. But again, I think if you're paying 12, 13 million for him, I think he'd be a good addition. Yeah.
How was asked about transfers, and he said it's about getting the right players in, not the speed in which we get the players in. So we're working hard behind the scenes to try and make that happen. There is clearly an air frustration, I think, from Howe and the hierarchy that things I know maybe slowed a little bit. But again, we go back to that word of panic. There is no panic, is there?
No, I don't think there is at the minute. But I think you could tell on Friday night when we put it to Howe. I think he was, for the first time this summer, maybe notably frustrated. And he did say he wasn't frustrated with the club. But he said he was just sort of more frustrated as to how the market was playing out. I think he thought, if you'd asked him a month ago, I think he thought he'd have another attacker in by Forest, which, we asked him on Friday whether he thinks there'd be another body in, and he said never say never. But he also said he's been in the game long enough not to give us a direct answer, which he very rarely does. But, you've got to love him. He keeps his cards close to his chest. But for the first time this summer, I thought there was a visible, and he sort of let us know that he was, for the first time, a bit concerned that they hadn't got another player in, but they're really trying hard behind the scenes to get 2 bodies in before the end of August, and I think they'll do it. They've got a couple of ideas in the pipeline, and I think they'll get 1 or 2 in before the end of the month.
There's still a month to go, isn't there? So still plenty of time. Roger there says Cornet's stats okay, an okay addition, maybe below the level we are looking at. But again, what I would say there is we just have to remind ourselves of what was happening in last summer's transfer window and the windows before that. If you're going out and signing Cornet, who is someone who does get fans off the seats, that's sometimes a lot more than we used to see in Newcastle United. So it might just be a case of remembering that Newcastle, where they've come from, and that they're on a slow build as well. Slow and steady is always the kind of the phrase Amanda Staveley is used, and I don't think it's it's a bad thing to look back on that phrase and just remind ourselves of where Newcastle are going to, but also where they've come from. Let's talk about then something a little bit different just to wrap up. What I've done is I've created an Everything is Black and White podcast Fantasy Premier League. I'll put that into the comments and in the description for the podcast as well. And guys, I want you to join it just for fun. Hopefully we'll get a fair few of you in there. And me and Aaron have picked our teams, and he's going to pop the teams onto the screen. You can hopefully see them there. I think they're on the screen now. All good?
Yeah.
Grand. I'm going to read through mine, and then Aaron will read through his, and then we'll hopefully get your comments on ours as well. So I'm just going to read through the whole squad. I've gone Alisson, Gazzaniga, Alexander-Arnold, Trippier, Dunk, Zinchenko, Son, Ward-Prowse, De Bruyne, Bruno, Jesus, Wilson, Watkins, Iwobi, and Walker-Peters. And the first question I'm going to ask, well, actually, Aaron, what we'll do is I'll get you to read yours out first, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so my team at the minute, this might change before the first game on Friday. I've got Edison in goal, and sub-keeper is Brentford's Raya. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Reece James, Fem Botman, of course, Luke Shaw, and Nico Williams. Martinelli, Son, Lingard, Sterling, and I don't know how you pronounce that guy's name from Aston Villa. I know the young one.
I think they'll know.
And Erling Haaland up front alongside Callum Wilson. We might be seeing that in Newcastle in a couple of years. And Joe Gelhardt.
Not a bad little team there. I'm just counting how many Newcastle United players. So what, you got 2 Newcastle players every in that team? Mm-hmm. I've gone for 3. It'd be interesting to know as well your guys in the comments, because I don't know about you guys, but I do tend to pick Newcastle United players, even though I think it's more to do with a bit of blind faith than maybe expectation that they're actually going to do something.
Every season without fail, I think I usually have 2 or 3 in, and then I think by the end of August they're usually they're usually out the team and they don't return. But look, this is this is a different season where they probably will rack up some points this season. So hopefully they can stick around in the team longer than a month.
It's interesting because I do think it tells you a little bit. I mean, if you're talking fullbacks in the Premier League, obviously Alexander-Arnold is one of the best, maybe the best. But then Kieran Trippier is definitely up there. He's not too far behind. And after a full pre-season, under Eddie Howe, he's fit. He's back from that injury. We're going to see him at his very best, the motivation of the World Cup. So, he's up there. Bruno, we've talked about what class he is. So that's why he's in my team. I'm hoping he can sustain that goal-scoring form of last season. And then Wilson, we've said on countless episodes, people in the comments are still saying it now. If Callum Wilson stays fit, he's going to be up there with the very best in the Premier League. You're going to be looking at Southgate's squad for Qatar in December and saying, well, if Callum Wilson does what we know he can do, other than Harry Kane on form, is there going to be a better striker to take to the World Cup?
Yeah, 100%. It's all that big if, isn't it? About will he stay fit? Can he put in a proper run of games? But look, I've included him in my team because of how well he played at the end of last season, how well he's done in pre-season as well. Botman, maybe I should think about benching him Saturday, given that he's not going to start because he's in the team for the long run, but he might not be playing this week. But yeah, 2 in there at the minute. Maybe add Maxi in, depending on how he starts the season.
Well, we've got Jonathan there saying he's got Ansett Maximin in, but I've gone for some players a little more clinical. I mean, Son, Ward-Prowse, De Bruyne, and Bruno. I mean, that is, if I do say so myself, that is a frightening midfield, I think.
Yeah, that might be a St James's Park midfield in a couple of years if the owners get their top targets in Champions League football. Yeah, I've gone Son as well. I'll probably captain him on the first weekend as well. Lingard, because I just think he's nailed on to score this Saturday at St James's. Sterling, good signing for Chelsea. Haaland, obviously, we think we'll hit the ground running, hopefully. Yeah, I mean, I'm confident that team. I don't think it'll change.
You say hopefully not on the second home game for Newcastle United. Fingers crossed. Yeah, he misses another sitter like he did against Liverpool. Geordie Toon for Life says if Wilson stays fit, he needs more creativity, and that's something that we lack badly. And someone did text me actually after Friday, and he said that what came out of Friday for him was that it showed, other than maybe the first 11 to 13, there's nothing really much else in that Newcastle United squad. Is that a little bit unfair, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've tried across January and the summer to add depth, which I think they have done. I think that midfield's looking strong now. We're talking about Shelby being missing, and I think we'd be happy with Anderson, Willock, or Longstaff filling in. I think they've got good depth in midfield, as we touched on. There's bodies in attack with Miggy and Fraser who'll do a job on their day, and the second string defence is still strong. Kraft, the Cells, one of the Shaw and Burn, and then Dummett. So yeah, look, I think that is quite unfair. I think there's depth there now.
Well, you mentioned Dummett there, and I knew there was one person I forgot to mention from the Bilbao game, and it was Paul Dummett. And to see him back sliding in like there's no tomorrow and winning the ball, and you hear that kind of like that was one of the joys of Saturday, and the crowd loved it as well. They were cheering every slide tackle he put in because he's legendary for it. It's a good old Paul Dummett sliding tackle, and he was looked a bit out of breath by the end of the game, but he'd been put through it, and to come back from the injury, and again, it's a big season for him. But I thought he did decent, and he's a good backup, and it was just nice to see him back out on the pitch, getting some minutes into the legs, and bringing out those good old Paul Dummett sliding tackles.
Yeah, 100%. I was glad to see him starting. Maybe not up to speed yet, which is why he was probably the first sub off for Matt Bonswell. But yeah, I've just got my fingers crossed that he stays fit this season, because he deserves it after what he's gone through the last couple of years.
And just going back to these teams here, I mean, I'm looking at Jesus, who's obviously moved to Arsenal, and Shizenko as well. And it's interesting because, I mean, obviously two players there when two positions when Newcastle were looking to strengthen, and then they've moved to Arsenal. Is that kind of the levels again, though? Newcastle would have taken them two players, but they've gone to Arsenal, and is that kind of a reminder of the levels of where Newcastle are and where they hope to be?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know there was talk earlier this season that, earlier this summer, sorry, that Zinchenko was obviously being offered to Newcastle. Look, he's, there's still a long way to go before they're beating the likes of Arsenal. I know they did it to Bruno, but there's a long way to go yet until they're beating them on a regular basis to signs like that. So good signing for Arsenal and a player that I definitely would like to see at Newcastle.
There we have it. Well, the new season is quickly going to be upon us, just days away. And we're going to have plenty of content on the podcast channel later this week. A lot of people not liking the fact that Aaron suggested Lingard might score against Newcastle.
I just think it's a certainty to happen on Saturday, given that he was offered to Newcastle. We've said no, and I've just got nightmares of him turning up on Saturday and doing one at the very, very end to give Forest the win. But look, of course, hopefully it doesn't happen.
He's going to get megged by Bruno. He's then going to miss a sitter, and the crowd are going to be cheering like there's no tomorrow. But yeah, plenty of good content coming up on the website. There's our new season preview, which you can order as well. That'll get delivered to your door. You can pick it up in your newsagents. We're going to have an extended episode tomorrow, Fans Forum, with Sam Milner from Newcastle Fans TV. He's going to answer all 7 of them questions, which I mentioned earlier. We're then going to have the final episode for now of the Let's Talk About series. We're going to have that on Allen's at Maximum. We'll then have a Newcastle preview looking ahead to Forest, and we'll also have the view from the opposition, which of course will be the City ground. We're going to get the insight into the Forest, and we'll talk about the likes of Jack Carlback and what have you, most likely, and Lingard. There's plenty of stuff over on the website, so do head over to that. I'll pop the links into everything I've mentioned. That's this big forum, the league for the fantasy league. So do sign up to that as well. It's been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for tuning in, and have a pleasant Monday and enjoy the rest of your week.